Chag Sameach, Rabotai. Let's talk about Pirkeh Avot, Perek Shishi. It says over there something very important. The last perek over there talks about the great qualities of Torah study, and the people who know Torah and all these things, the very important things over there. So I want to tell you a couple of things. It says over there that a person who learns any Torah from his fellow Jew, he has to give him kavod. Doesn't matter whether he learned two psukim from him, two halachot, or two prakim, or two words of Torah, or even letters of the Torah. What does that mean, letters of the Torah? That means that a person who learns the letters of the Torah is learning Torah. This is the essence of the Torah. You learn Aleph Bet. The first thing we teach a person when he learns Torah is Aleph Bet. If he doesn't know that, what Torah does he have? He doesn't have nothing. It's the first thing he has to learn, because the whole Torah is based on that. The Aleph Bet. In the Kabbalah, by the way, they talk very deep about these things, about the mashma'ut, the implication of every letter, what it means, the depths. Because the truth is, the world is created on the basis of the Aleph Bet. That's the world that stands on that. So if a person doesn't know Aleph Bet, he doesn't know anything about Torah. That's the first thing you have to learn. So even if your Rebbe, you went to school, right? And your Rebbe taught you Aleph Bet, this is Aleph, this is Bet, this is Gimel. You have to treat him with kavod because he taught you Torah. This is the reason why, we're not allowed to teach a goy Aleph Bet or Ivrit, Hebrew. If a goy comes and says, tells you, listen, I want you to teach me. I want to learn Hebrew, I want to be Israeli, talk with Israelis. You're not allowed to teach him. Because you're not allowed to teach a goy Torah. You're not allowed. Not allowed to. Torah tziva lanu Moshe morasha, Keilat Yaakov. Lanu morasha. Not for them. It's our morasha. It's our inheritance. It's not for them. So if a goy comes and tells you, teach me Aleph Bet, you have to tell him, I'm sorry, If you want to be Jewish, first convert, then I'll teach you after you convert. That's what it says in the Gemara. That Hillel and Shammai, when Onkelos, the ger, came to convert, they didn't teach him Aleph Bet until first they converted him. First and then they told them, okay, now we'll teach you Aleph Bet. Because Aleph Bet is Torah. It's Torah. Very important part of the Torah. Okay, so it says in Pirkeh Avot that a person who learns anything, even two letters, from his fellow Jew, he has to give him kavod. You have to give him kavod because you learn some Torah from him. Kavod you have to give him. Why do you have to give him kavod? Because if you learn Torah from him, he's your rabbi. What do you think? I'm not talking about your main rabbi. You learn from him for years. For years you learn from him, right? For 10 years, your main rabbi. Glavni rabbi. No, I'm talking about just you learn two things from him. One, two, something. Two letters, two psukim. He's your rabbi. So you have to give him kavod, The question is, what kavod do you have to give him? What is the kavod you have to give him? What do you have to do for him? What, make him a dinner? What, go to his house and cook for him? What do you have to do for him? So it says in the Zohar Kadosh, listen to this, Over there, in that time of the Zohar, Rabbi Shimon, was alive. So there was a great deal of chokhmah, in the world at that time. So even the children, the little kids, they knew deep secrets of the Torah, Kabbalah, they knew. The kids, children, they knew. It was a very high level at that time, No such a thing like that afterwards. No generation came after that like that. They say it won't be like another generation like that until Mashiach comes, like Rabbi Shimon's generation. The children knew Kabbalah, the little kids, 5-year-old children. They would come and teach, people, Kabbalah. How does a 5-year-old kid know Kabbalah? Where does he learn Kabbalah? He doesn't even know Aleph Bet. Where does he learn this from? So they say, that in the time of Rabbi Shimon, there were big chachamim, big scholars that were reincarnated, Gilgul. They came as children, to the world. And because they were Gilgul from big chachamim, these children, they knew Kabbalah, from their neshama. They already knew from the last lifetime. They were such a high level, these children, because they came from big roots, big shoresh. This was the only time Rabbi Shimon. So you know what they did, right? In those days, the child would come, 5-year-old kid, sucking a lollipop. Can you imagine? Like, Yonatan's kid, right? Can you imagine? Kid like this, right? And he comes and he would teach, give a drasha, Kabbalah to Chachamim. The Chachamim would be listening to him, and this kid would give him a drasha, with his lollipop, Can you imagine? And they would listen to him, learn from him Kabbalah. And after they learned from him now, you know what they did, right? Every time they would see this kid, they would stand up for him, to give him kavod, because they learned from him some Torah. So you see from there, that's what they did, the Chachamim, When they used to learn, even from a child, some Torah, they would stand up, when he came into the room, because they're Talmid of this guy. They're Talmidim. It's incredible, So what do you see from there? Teaches you Pirkeh Avot, that anybody that you learn any Torah from him, you have to give him kavod. Now here's the thing, right? Where do we learn this from? It says Pirkeh Avot. Where's the makor? The source for this? In the Bible, in the Tanakh. Where do we see this? So it says, right? It's talking from David HaMelech, with Achitophel, right? So what happened? David HaMelech, was not only he was Melech, he was also big Chacham, one of the Gedolei Ador of his generation. Gedol Ador. There was also Achitophel. He was also Gedol Ador, Achitophel. One of the big Chachamim of the generation. So you know what it is, right? That the question is, who was really bigger, Achitophel was bigger or David was bigger, So they were both giants, the truth is. They were both giants, They say that David, he was very, very big. He didn't really need to learn from Achitophel much, because he already knew everything. He didn't really need to learn much from him. But they say, that he learned from him 2 things. 2 things he learned from Achitophel. So what does that mean? These are things which, it's not written in the Shulchan Aruch, not written in the Rambam, not written in the Talmud, these things. It's not written in the Zohar. These are things that most people don't learn, even the big Chachamim, they don't know these things. He learned 2 things from Achitophel. You know what they say about Achitophel, right? If you would go to Achitophel in that generation, right, and you would get advice from him about something, you have a question, right? Vapros, a question, come to him. If you would get advice from Achitophel, it was considered to be like God told you, that those things, because the word of Achitophel was like the word of God. He was such a big chacham, Whatever etzah he would give you, advice, about something, 100%. 100%, 100%, right? Nothing, no mistakes. Achitophel. He was like this, That's why David was very scared of him. Why? Because he went with his son, right? Avshalom, against him, to rebel. So once he found out, David, that Achitophel went with Avshalom, he was like, oh my God, if this guy is going to give him advice, he's going to beat me, I have no chance. He's so wise, he's going to get me, he knew. If this guy, Avshalom, was going to listen to him, I'm finished. I'm finished. I have no chance. So what happened, right? That's why he sent, Hushai Arki, who was his friend, right? He sent Hushai, David, he told him, he says, you know what? Go over there to the camp of Avshalom. Go over there, And if you hear, right, that Achitophel gives advice to Avshalom, tell him, no, he's wrong. Don't do it this way. Do it this way, the opposite way. Mess it up. He was like a double agent, you understand? Double agent, You understand? He told him, he said, I want you to go in there, penetrate, pretend like you're with him, And whatever Achitophel says, say just the opposite. Because if he listens to Achitophel, I'm finished. So what happened? What was the whole story there, Achitophel hated David, he had a grudge against him. He had a, kfeda on him, What was the hatred? Why? You know why? Because Bathsheba, who he married, was the granddaughter of Achitophel. Understand? So he was angry, because what he did to her. He did something, not so kosher over there, As we know, right? We spoke about this already. It wasn't so kosher, this thing. It wasn't glad kosher, Whatever. Okay, whatever. We're not going to get into that. Anyway, he had a, kfeda because of this, So he was jealous of David. And he said, what I'm going to do? He said like this. He was thinking, I'm gonna go kill David now, and I'm gonna be the melech, I'm gonna kill him, then I'll kill Avshalom. I'm gonna be the king. I'm gonna be melech. That's what he wanted. Understand? So he told Avshalom. He said, you know what? He came to Yerushalayim, right? Avshalom, to conquer the city, and David ran off. Barach. He ran away. So what happened was, now the question was what to do. He came to Yerushalayim. Okay, he took Yerushalayim, Avshalom. But now, right? The question was what to do now, right? So Achitophel told to Avshalom like this. He says, I'll take care of it. Listen to me. He says, I'm going to give you the best advice. Let me go now over there, right? Where he's hiding David, He ran away, right? He says, let me take 12,000 people with me, I'm going to go over there, surprise him, Now he's tired. He ran off from the city. He's IF, he's not well balanced yet. He doesn't have a good plan, He's confused. So he says, I'm going to go now. 12,000 people, I'm going to go and kill him, I'll finish him right now. Tonight. Let's not wait, because if we wait, he's going to get organized, He told him, let me do it now, tonight. Otherwise, it's going to be too late. So it comes over there, Hushai Arki, right? The friend of David, right? He tells him, he says, no, he says, what Achitophel is saying is wrong. He says, if we go tonight over there with 12,000 people, they're going to beat us, because they're like, they're very bitter, they're embittered, so they're like going to fight like lions, it's going to be very difficult for us. So he told him like this, he says, what Achitophel is saying is wrong. He says, what we should do is first gather all of Am Yisrael, millions of people, and then we'll go and fight against them, with millions of people, not 12,000. That's not good enough. So why did he tell him this? Because he wanted to spoil the plans of Achitophel, because Achitophel was right. He was Chacham. You understand? So what happened was, that he told him, no, what Achitophel is saying is wrong. So what happened was that they all listened to Hushai Arki, They didn't listen to Achitophel. He messed, exactly what David sent him there to do, he did. He messed up the plan of Achitophel, So listen to this now, right? Achitophel, once he saw that they didn't take his advice, they listened to Hushai Arki. You know what he did, right? Right away, he knew that the war was lost. He knew that David was going to win. He was so chacham, he understood, now he had no chance to win. No chance. So what did he do? He went, back to his family, and he committed suicide. He hung himself on a tree. He hung himself because he knew that he was finished. David was going to come, and eventually could kill him. So then why didn't he wait until David will come? Why didn't he wait? What are you in a hurry? Such a hurry? Wait till he comes. Meanwhile, you're alive. What do you care? Maybe he won't come. He knew for sure that he's going to come. He knew 100%. He was so chacham. He realized, this was a big mistake what they were doing. So why did he kill himself? Why didn't he run off? You know why? Because they say, that if the king kills you, because you rebelled against him, he takes your property. He takes your land. So he didn't want to lose his land. He wanted his children to get his land. They should inherit. So that's why, he killed himself. Why? Because now they inherit him. Once he dies, the children inherit the land. But if he's going to wait until David kills him, David is going to take the land. He's going to lose everything. This is why he killed himself. Understand? Yeah.
If he was so smart, by hanging himself, he losing Olam Haba.
Yeah. What can I tell you? It's a good question. Your question is good. We can talk about that. But anyway, right? I don't have time to get into that. But it's a big philosophy. Very deep, right? It's very deep stuff there. But anyway, right? I want to tell you the whole story here. So what happened? In the end, anyway, right? The bottom line is, that David, he was, before he killed him, before this whole thing happened, he was the advisor of David, he was Yoetz, number one, the advisor of David. That's what he was, Achitophel. And then he went with Avshalom, he rebelled against him. He betrayed him. But in the beginning, he was with David. So David, had so much respect for him. Just because he learned from him two things. What was the things that he learned from Achitophel? As I told you, right? David didn't need to learn nothing from Achitophel. He knew the whole Torah already. Kol Torah kula. So what did he learn from him? I'll tell you, we'll finish over here. I'll tell you what he learned from him. They say, that there's a famous story about this. Once I spoke about this already once or twice. Famous story, that one time David was digging in the ground, with the whole people there. Why? Because there was no water, there was a drought. So he was trying to dig into the ground and get some water out of there, you dig in the ground, right? The water comes out, gushes out. So what happened was he found over there a piece of cheres, some clay, and he uprooted that, took it out, and the water started to gush out. He struck water there. But the thing was, the water was too much, It was too big. Exactly. So what happened was, that the water was flooding, the whole area, They couldn't survive like that. They couldn't survive. So what happened was that he didn't know what to do, David, He didn't have the chokhmah to stop the water. He didn't know what to do. Meanwhile, they're going to drown. It's crazy. So what happened? Right? He said, he announced to people, there was a lot of people there around him. He said, whoever knows how to stop the water, please now come and tell me. I don't know what to do. I don't have the chokhmah for this. So nobody answered him nothing, No answer. So then, next time he called out again. He says, whoever knows the answer doesn't come, he says he should choke to death. This is what happened to Achitophel, right? He choked. He cursed him, So what happened? Achitophel, when he heard the curse that David cursed, so he says, I know what to do. He says, I'm going to go and tell him, because otherwise I'm going to get cursed. I'm the only one who knows what to do. So what did he do? He told David, he says, what you have to do is take that cheres, that clay, and write the Shem Hashem on it, and put it over there, and it's going to stop the water. It's going to stop it. So he did it, and he stopped the water. He knew how to do this, He knew how to chokhmah. They say there was another thing, he taught him also, He taught him when David brought the Aron HaKodesh, to Yerushalayim, right? It was in a different place, right? So he brought it to Yerushalayim when he built his Malchut, in Yerushalayim. He taught him how to carry the Aron HaKodesh, how it has to be carried. There's a special way, It has to be carried by who? By Levi'im. Right? Levites, right? Levi'im. It cannot be carried by anybody else. So there's a special method there, that has to be done. So what happened was, that he taught him how to do it. So those are the two things, that he learned from Achitophel. There's another midrash that says he learned two other things also. Two other things, he says. One is that that David, he used to do two things alone, by himself. One is that he prayed alone. He didn't go to minyan, he didn't come to, Chodji Katan. He didn't come, he didn't come to, he was praying at home, Babait. Ashrei Yeshuvetecha. So Achitophel told him, he says, no, you have to come to minyan. He says, don't pray it alone in your house. What are you doing? Told him. One thing. Another thing he taught him he said, when you're learning Torah, don't learn by yourself. Come to Beit HaMidrash and learn with the group. With the tzafta. You have to learn together with the group. So he taught him those two things, according to this midrash. Anyway, right, he learned from him two things. So what did he do? David, even though David really, Achitophel was not his Rabbi. David was Gadol on his own. But since he learned from him those two things, he called him, he says, you're my Rabbi. It says in the Tehillim, right? You're my Rebbe, he calls him. You're my Rebbe. Why? Because I learned two things from you. So we learn from there, right? It says Pirkeh Avot. You learn from here that you have to give kavod to anyone who taught you anything in Torah, right? Even two things, two words, two psukim, two letters even, two otiyot. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ve'Amen. לפיכך אני אומר, זה קדוש ברוך הוא לא זכר ישראל, לפיכך חיבה להם תורה ומצוות שנאמר אדוני חפץ, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר.